What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Retro Cup, and in the Retro Cup we're going to be taking a look at Shadow Jumpluff, Shadow Feraligatr, and Astonish DUNSPARCE. Now, why are we running Astonish on this Pokemon instead of the typical Rollout? Well, Rollout, first of all, was nerfed a couple seasons ago, and Astonish is a fantastic move as it is. It's a very hard-hitting charge move, and it generates energy pretty well as well. That said, this is a ghost heavy meta, and there's loads of them around because dark types are banned, same with psychics, so a lot of those have come out, and DUNSPARCE can hit those for super effective damage, and it can potentially farm down, which it typically isn't able to do with Rollout. So without further ado, let's see DUNSPARCE hunting some ghost types. Alright, first lead is a Primeape. This is a fantastic lead. They're going to get out into a Blastoise, and I don't have a great answer for Blastoise, so I'm just going to come in with my DUNSPARCE because my DUNSPARCE doesn't want to see the Primeape. So I'm basically just throwing my DUNSPARCE away. If I am able to take Switch, so be it. If I'm not, so be it. Either way, I can get to one drill run. My opponent's going to actually outpace me, which means that I kind of need to just take this, and then now I can get an energy lead on my Feraligatr, because Primeape doesn't want to see an energy lead Feraligatr either, and I can very comfortably take a Hydro. I believe this is only enough for a Hydro Cannon, so I can just let this go, and it is. Now I'm going to fully commit to the farm down, and unfortunately my opponent does make it to another Hydro Cannon, so I am going to commit the shield. But I'm going to come out with basically 100 energy, so if they want to come back in with that Primeape, they're going to have to eat 2 Hydros, and I don't think a Primeape could even eat 1. I'm going to farm up to nearly back-to-back Hydro Cannons once again, and my opponent double shields, so now I'm going to instantly pivot into my Jumpluff, and they have a Clodsire in the back, so that is why they fought for Switch. Clodsire, obviously, is a poison type, and it has access to Stone Edge or Sludge Bomb, so this will be super effective damage, but Jumpluff is so bulky, and because I'm running the Shadow with Acrobatics, look how much damage I am doing to this Clodsire. We've got it deep into the red. I was about to make it to an Aerial Ace, so I can at this point just let this go. I need not save my shield for the Primeape because they have a charge move loaded, but we're able to get the full farm down, come out with a Hydro loaded. My opponent realizes with the shield there's no longer a win con, so they just resign the match. Yes, this is a Tinkaton on your screen in the Retro Cup. In the first 2 hours, I think Tinkaton, Revavroom, the Beldum family, Dashbun, all of those were not banned. I don't know why they have to like update the exact specific Pokemon and not just ban a typing. It's beyond me. But either way, I safe switch into my Feraligatr. I bait out a Furret, which is great because my Astonish DUNSPARCE absolutely doesn't want to see that. I get 1 turn lag when I come in, which is fine. We're also not seeing the animations go through when they get to like when we throw our charge move for some reason. I think that was just a bug in the early. See, actually, I see it there, so I'm not really sure what was going on. But either way, we're able to get to an Aerial Ace, knock out the Furret. Now I've got an energy lead on my DUNSPARCE, and my fast move is actually not resistant here. They do go for a catch onto their Jellicent, but I would have thrown a Drill Run either way, so that would have been fine. In comes a Drill Run, and now once that connects, I see a win con. And my win con is double shielding my DUNSPARCE and going for a full farm down. I guess I could let 1 Surf go because they would make it to a play rough, but I am going to double shield because I know 1 play rough will not be enough to KO, and if I come out with 2 Drill Runs loaded, I'm going to be in a great situation here. So here is the first Drill Run, and I should be grabbing a shield from my opponent, and we do. I do go for good timing, which is fine because I know I'm not going to be taken out from 1 charge move here. It looks like, wow, they're going to need 2 play roughs actually. DUNSPARCE is bulky. So here comes a second Drill Run. That does big damage. I'm going to stay in, and now I'm going to pivot into my Jumpluff because they're forced to throw a play rough, and if I caught a Bulldoze, then great, but it is just the play rough. It is a Fairy Wind down, We both Fairy Wind down each other, but with a Dunsparce in the back, we're able to take that win. Charjabug. So this is a pretty neutral lead, believe it or not, as an electric type. They do soft lose this matchup, I believe, because obviously as a bug, which would take super effective from flying, but the electric resists flying, so it's net neutral. They do correctly shield and acrobatics, which does make this matchup more uncomfortable. However, I can no shield 2 X scissors, and then I'm actually gonna, well, I was gonna throw the acrobatics, but they try and make a catch onto the Grumpig. I was patient, held on to my energy. I come in with a Shadow for Alligator. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back moves because I know I have a slight pacing advantage, and I was pretty quick on the switch. So here comes the first Hydro. They let that go. Are they going to come back in with that Charjabug? They are. And I am going to throw the Hydro here. This would do pretty big damage to the Charjabug, and they actually live on 1 HP. So had I thrown on CMP, I would have been able to KO. But in the back, it is a Medicham, and no, our fast move is not resisted here. It is super effective because we are on Astonish. And Astonish is great because we can live 1 Dynamic Punch, and they have no fast move pressure because Medichams this season are on Psycho Cut. So we're able to get to a Drill Run, we're able to connect with that. I believe we can just shield and fully farm down, or we can just let this go, come in with our Jump Bluff, make it 2 back-to-back Aerial Aces. Here comes the first Aerial Ace. In comes the second. We live that Psycho Cut, which is huge. And with that Charjabug at literally 1 HP, a 2-turn Fairy Wind is going to take out before a 4-turn Volt Switch. Oh my god. So we are able to take that win. Decent lead in the next match. We've got our Shadow Jump Bluff into a Furret. What I do is I like to farm up to the Acrobatics and bait with an Aerial Ace. I know 1 Acrobatics will not be enough to KO, but after having my Acrobatics shield in that last matchup, it did not feel great. So just going to go for the Aerial Ace. My opponent calls it, which is pretty unfortunate, but now I can farm back up. They've once again CMP timed me, but I do have enough for another Aerial Ace or an Acrobatic, so they might shield this if they want Switch, but no, my opponent is not playing for Switch. But because my pacing is just a little bit better, 5-4-5 instead of 5-5-5 like my opponent, I am able to outpace and take Switch. But what is in the back? A Goodra. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to farm up, can't make it to the Ice Beam, so I'm going to catch the Thunder Punch onto my Dunsparce and sneak an Astonish through, which will do some decent damage. And my opponent is staying in this matchup, so whatever is in back maybe doesn't want to see the Dunsparce as well. So now just going to go for the Drill Run, that connects, and at this point I'm reading that whatever is in back doesn't want to see Dunsparce, so I am just going to shield it up, and I was correct. It is a Shadow Charizard running Dragon Breath, which was showcased by Yonkis. I think you just want to run Talonflame in this meta, but all I have to do is make it 2 back-to-back Hydros here, and this game is over. They're not quite at back-to-back moves, so I can throw 1 Hydro, and if my opponent shields this, I can throw a 2nd Hydro, and this will be enough to KO the Charizard, and then we can Shadow Claw, farm down the Goodra, and we're able to take that win. Excuse me, my allergies, and I think I'm sick on top of it. I don't even know what's going on. Either way, we've got a Charjabug in the lead once again. So are we going to play this out the same way? Looks like we are going to farm up to the Acrobatics. My opponent does strike first with an X Scissor. That does some okay chip, but it looks like 2 are not enough to KO. Going to full send the Acrobatics. Is my opponent willing to shield? No, they're not. And I do make it to another charge move, but I can make it to an Aerial Ace before they're able to Volt Switch farm me down. I'm going to overfarm slightly so that I come out with a little bit of energy in case my opponent comes in with something weak to flying. But they do just come in with a Grumpig. So far the exact same team as the last one, played out slightly differently than my last opponent. I actually save the Jump Bluff and then come in with my Shadow for Alligator, and we bait out a Medicham, which is a bit odd for my opponent. They do shield up the Hydro, so I'm just going to match shields here. We have identical pacing, Dynamic Punch, and Hydro Cannon, so and these Shadow Claws are adding up way more than their Psycho Cuts, so I'm going to throw once again on CMP. My opponent lets this one go, so at this point, I think I just let this go because I want to save my shield for the DUNSPARCE so I can get a full Astonish farm down. Look at these Astonishes go. They do make it to one dynamic punch. Even if they're able to make it to a second one, it's not the end of the world. I can live one. It is super effective damage, but DUNSPARCE is so bulky that we actually live that. And at this point, we can just Astonish farm down the Medicham, so they resign the match. Oranguru. This is a great lead for the Jumpluff. Everything is neutral here, but neutrally, Jumpluff just outperforms Oranguru in this matchup, and they're forced to go for non-stab brutal swings. Obviously, Trailblaze is double resisted here, but it's also non-stab. But we are able to connect with an Acrobatics, which means we can now connect with an Aerial Ace, and they let that go, and it is a Typhlosion in the back, so I instantly pivot into my Feraligatr, but that one turn of switch that it took me to come into my Feraligatr actually allows my opponent to outpace. So if they want to, they can actually grab both shields from my Feraligatr in this matchup. They do shield up the Hydro. The reason I completely undercharge that is because if they decided for some reason to let that go, I wanted to get a Shadow Claw farm down because they weren't quite at the move. But in comes a Charjabug. I'm able to make it to a Hydro Cannon, and I actually live that on 1 HP, so I'm going to come in with my Jumpluff, force them to throw their energy. Is an Excessor enough to KO from this range? Not quite. I can throw one in the move because that is 3 turns versus 4 turns, so that will actually register. That does pretty big damage, and I'm 1 away from a Hydro on my Feraligatr, I believe. So I'm just going to come in with my DUNSPARCE. All I need to do is basically get off or force them to throw their energy so that they do not have a charge move. The game forced an overtap there, and I accidentally went for 2 Shadow Claws, which almost threw the game. But we are able to snipe with the Shadow Feraligatr, and we're able to take that win before they could get to the double up. Yeah, another Tinkaton on your screen. People were abusing the hell out of this because they realized most teams were pretty weak to it, but I was not. So I safe switch into my Feraligatr, bait out another Furret, so this is great. DUNSPARCE does not want to see that Furret, and they do throw right before I'm able to get to another charge move. I am going to shield this up because I want to at least grab a shield from my opponent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up 2 back-to-back Hydros, which forces them to throw as soon as they get to their move, because otherwise I would be able to get back-to-back Hydros off. They do throw the Swift, and at this point I think I got 1 turn lag there, which is pretty unfortunate. Maybe not, I can't really tell watching these back at like 1.6 times speed or whatever it is. And over farm, I make it to back-to-back Aerial Aces, so now I'm just going for the knockout with the Aerial Ace, saving one of these for later, and now I can instantly pivot into my DUNSPARCE. We are in the even shield scenario, but the fact that they're staying in this matchup makes me think that maybe they're core broken by DUNSPARCE, so I do actually correctly shield a Play Rough, and I was correct. It is a Lapras in the back. So I'm going to overfarm slightly here, now going for a super effective Rock Slide against my opponent. That lands. They know they can live 1, but they can't live 2 with plus these Astonishes. So this is a matchup where it would probably be nice to be on rollout, but it's not the end of the world that we're on Astonish. And we are able to get a second Rock Slide off, and we know we have energy banked on the Jumpluff. I probably should have just thrown the Aerial Ace because this allows them to actually switch out of this matchup. However, because I don't throw, that means I can get to an Acrobatics here, and if my opponent tries to fully farm down to come out with energy, then I can get to a second Acrobatics, and Acrobatics actually is enough to KO the Tinkaton. And now it's a race, Astonish versus Psywave, and unfortunately, oh man, my opponent outpaces by literally 1 turn, and they're able to take that win. Unfortunate there. Oh man, Gastrodon in the lead. This could not be a better lead. They safe switch into a Clodsire, and I come in with my Shadow Feraligatr. This is actually not a great matchup for the Shadow Feraligatr, because if they land an Earthquake, I believe they can Poison Sting down. So I'm going to shield this. They have farmed up to it, but it is just the Sludge Bomb, which means I'm going to throw the Hydro on CMP with the next Sludge Bomb. So that way, if my opponent shields this one, I can shield back and then just go for the full Shadow Claw farm down, come out loaded with energy. And my opponent does want to, so I'm going to go for the full farm down, and somehow, some way, they make it to another charge move. I have literally no idea how. I don't know how I was off my count, but I was off by like 2, so clearly not paying attention. But either way, the game gives us the alignment that we need, and we have our Astonished Dunsparce onto this Moongus. Their Astonishes are double resisted here. Foul play is non-stab, so they're going to have to go for Grass Knot. It looks like 2 Grass Knots are not enough to KO. So I am just going to over farm here, go for a Drill Run. And as we've seen, we can actually grab a shield back from my opponent. This was a CMP tie. As long as I live this Grass Knot, which I do on 1 HP, then we should be able to take this win, because as soon as that shield is gone, in comes the Jump Bluff, and my opponent, anticipating that, switches at the same time, but I just hold on to my energy, and now all I have to do is go for an Acrobatics. This will do some pretty great trip. It will not be enough to KO, which is fine, because I just have to farm up to back-to-back Aerial Aces. So, or I can throw the Aerial Ace right away and go for an Undercharge, and then a Fairy Wind farm down to come out loaded with energy. My opponent knows what's going on, so they just stop clicking, and then they resign the match. Okay, Jump Bluff into Annihilape. This is another fantastic lead. My opponent gets out into a Lapras, and I come in with my Dunsparce. Now, once again, this is a matchup where it would be nice to have a rollout. So if you're seeing a bunch of Laprases and you're not seeing a bunch of like Ghost or Psychic, then maybe you do want to run the rollout Dunsparce instead of the Astonish, especially because your pacing is better with rollout. But either way, we're able to connect with a Rock Slide, and that's pretty much all we need in this matchup, because we can then come in with our Shadow for Alligator, get an energy lead. And does an Annihilape really want to see super effective Shadow Claws landing on their Annihilape or Shadow Hydros? No, they don't. So instead, they actually come in with their Annihilape. Well, they come in with an Oranguru where Shadow Claw is resisted, but that means their Annihilape is aligned against our Jump Bluff anyways, and we actually just grab a shield. So now we have a shield advantage. They do farm up to an Ice Punch, so I will respect this on the chance that they're running it, and they are. But now that allows me to overfarm pretty significantly here. Go for an Aerial Ace, which from the Shadow Jump Bluff is enough to KO Annihilape from this range, just barely. And at this point, they're basically an Aerial Ace plus Fairy Wind range. So just gonna go for the Aerial Ace, and that puts them in farm down range. So just gonna go for another Aerial Ace, either grab that shield or just take them out if they know what's coming for them, and they do. So they just let that go, and we're able to take that win. Into the final match of the video, we've got Shadow Jump Bluff into Licky Licky. Now, this is a matchup where you're like, oh, Licky Licky is a rollout user, so this is a negative matchup for Jump Bluff. Not for the Shadow Jump Bluff running Acrobatics, especially with rollout being nerfed this season, or last season, whatever it was. They do just go for a Body Slam. This is enough for the Shadow Ball at this point, so they might full send the Shadow Ball now, which they do, but that's fine. Because at this point, after the Acrobatics lands, they're in Aerial Ace range, and Aerial Ace doesn't quite KO, but allows me to get a Fairy Wind farm down. So in the zeros, Shadow Jump Bluff still able to take that win. I tried to throw the Aerial Ace, but I got forced an overtap, which is pretty unfortunate. And we align our Dunsparce against their Dusk Noir, which is okay as long as they don't get too much of an energy lead, because they can get to multiple dynamic punches. They come in with a Toxapex. I eventually align my Shadow for Alligator here, which is not a great matchup, but they do bait with the Brine, which is pretty huge, and now I can make it to back-to-back Hydros. So even though this is a terrible matchup for Shadow for Alligator, we're about to force a shield from my opponent, which is absolutely insane. So now grabbing that shield, it will be enough to KO. I think I just have to let this go, because I need to shield dynamic punches, so no matter what this is, just let it go. It's a Sludge Wave. But now I just have to go for basically a full Astonish farm down and double shield. Even if they're bait, they're not going to be able to bait twice and make it to a dynamic punch. So just go for the full farm down, and then come out with 2 drill runs loaded for the Toxapex. In comes a Dynamic Punch. They get Astonish farm down. We're at back-to-back moves, so throw in the Drill Run at 100 energy here. First Drill Run is shielded up. Second Drill Run, can't shield 2 when you only got 1 shield. KOs the Toxapex, and we're able to take that win. But yeah, that is Astonish Dunsparce in the Retro Cup. This thing is kind of a beast. I had a lot of fun running it, and I went extremely positive. I also played another team, so between the two teams, you'll see the next team tomorrow. I think I gained like 100 elo because I dropped down to like 2800, messing around with some spice picks, like some that you've seen on the channel before. But yeah, I climbed to like mid 2800, so I think I climbed all the way back up to exactly 3000 rating. So that was pretty cool between this team and the last team. So very successful. But yeah, let me know if you guys are having success with Astonish Dunsparce, or if you definitely just prefer rollout on this thing. I think it's a cool side grade for this Pokemon, especially with the rollout nerf. That said, at Shadow Jumpluff, Shadow Feraligatr, they're extremely dominant, and this core of these three together is phenomenal. If you want to run Shadow Jumpluff in the back because you think opponents are going to be expecting it in the lead, I had a comment about that in my previous video on the top teams video. A team you can run is either Shadow Feraligatr or Lapras on the lead, Clodsire as your safe switch, and then Shadow Jumpluff as your closer, because Shadow Acrobatics is definitely a closer type move, and then Clodsire as your safe switch with Earthquake and Stone Edge in this meta is really strong. It also resists Fighting and Electric, which Lapras is weak to, and it's good against your fighters, and it can potentially bait out Ice types that Jumpluff doesn't want to see. So very strong team there as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Sorry about my voice, my face, all of the above. Sick, allergies, yeah, you get the point. But thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.